Don't forget, this side of the front, you cut it on fabric while on fold. Don't make a mistake of cutting this side when it's not on fold. So okay, check 1 2. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you're watching from. Welcome back to Top Stitch Tailoring Studio. In today's episode, we are doing again another twist, of which we are making this beautiful bustier dress, and it's the requested video by one of my subscribers, that is Madam Abigail, all the way from Ghana. Please, this is your tutorial, I dedicate you. So guys, this is the measurement case study table that we are going to use as per this request.
Still want to know more about it, and I just want the simplest way of drafting it. But this one, someone took us through, but I'm not all that clear. That's why.
So let us jump straight to our practical class. Okay guys, this is our pattern paper for our bustier top project. As usual, I first draw this one vertical line on one side of my pattern paper, which will be my center guideline. Also, I draw this horizontal line on the top of my pattern paper, which serves as my neckline as well as the shoulder line. Then, at this point, I label it A, which will be my starting point for most of my measurements. Now, let us get started with the insertion of other body measurements to these lines. I first insert the neck widths and neck depths. Now, from starting point A, I measure inwards chest measurement, divide by 12. In this tutorial, my chest measurement is 35 inches. I divide by 12, giving me 2.9 inches. So, I mark here my 2.9 inches here. Then I square a straight line like this. Also, what I got here is what I square downwards for my neck depths. So I mark 2.9 inches here. Still, I square across a straight line like this. Now, if you don't know how to determine the correct curve at the neckline, here is a simple guide for you. Draw a diagonal broken straight line like this. Then divide this distance into 3. Here I have 4 inches. So I divide it by 3, giving me 1.3 inches. So I mark 1.3 inches here. Then at this point, I create a neck curved line like so. Now we are done with the neck, and we have been working on the front neckline first. Next is to insert my shoulder to shoulder measurements. I come here from starting point A. I measure inwards any shoulder to shoulder measurements, divide by 2 plus a ½ inch seam allowance. So in this video, my shoulder to shoulder measurement of my client is 14 inches. I divide by 2, giving me 7 inches plus 0.5 inches seam allowance, giving me 7.5 inches. So I mark my 7.5 inches here. Then I have to square these measurements like this after I draw upwards a straight line to create my armhole line rise. Since our shoulders are never straight, so I come to this point. I mark downwards 1 inch for shoulder drop. Then I connect this point to this point like this for shoulder drop. Next step is to determine my chest line. I come here at this point of armhole line. I mark downwards I mark downwards shoulder divided by 2, which is 14 divided by 2, giving me 7 inches. So I mark 7 inches here. Then I square across a straight line like this to create chest line as well as armhole bottom line. Next is to determine the bust line depths. Usually the distance from the shoulder to the bust is 9.5 inches to 11 for adults, but for me in this tutorial my client's shoulder to bust line is 9.5 inches, but I will customize it to 10 inches. So I mark 10 inches here. Then I square across a straight line like so. This is the chest line. Then this one is now the bust line. Next step is to determine under bust line. From starting point A, I measure downwards my under bust height of 13 inches, but my client's under bust shoulder to under bust is 11, but I've customized it to 13 inches so that it gives me a good impression or a good outcome of the bustier. Because if you make it at 11 inches, it looks small and tiny, because now the circumference will be in 2 inches. So I need the circumference to be too big so that I get enough. Actually, I bring the shape of our bustier in a very good way. That's why I've customized it to 13 inches. So here I mark 13 inches like this. After I draw a straight, I square across a straight line like this. Still, I label this as under bust line. Okay, guys, we are going step by step, not until we come up with our bustier top. Remember, we are dealing with the bustier, and the way we draft it, it's different, and I didn't want to make you pass via the shortcut of first of all drafting the basic bodies, and then we develop bustier from it. So I just want us to go straight. We draw everything, then we come up with our bustier dress. Actually, we are starting from zero up to where we will get our bustier. So let us continue step by step, not until we come up with the bustier. Follow me, follow. Okay, next step is to determine my bustier top full length. Remember, this bustier, we are going to attach it to the bottom skirt to create a complete dress. So I come here at starting point A. I measure downwards shoulder to waistline 15, shoulder to waistline. My client's shoulder to waistline is 15 inches, so I add 0.5 inch joining allowance, giving me 15.5 inches. So I mark here 15.5 inches. Then after, I square across a straight line like this. Still, I label this as bustier top waist hemline. Next is to determine the placement of the waist dart. I come here at this point. I measure inwards, nipple to nipple. Others call it apex to apex measurement divided by 2. In this tutorial, my client's nipple to nipple measurements is 7.5 inches. I divide it by 2, giving 3.75 inches plus 0.5 inch seam allowance, giving me 4.25. So I mark 4.25 inches here. Also at this waistline, I mark 4.25 inches. Then I square up a straight line to create a dart line. After, I come here at this point. I mark downwards 1 inch for my dart point. 1 is a standard unit for adults unless otherwise. Then I come to this under bust line at this point of this side of center front. I mark outwards 0.75 inches. Then on this side I mark 1 inch dart intake. Still I come to this waistline at this point. I mark outwards dart intake of 0.75 inches. Then on this side I mark dart intake of 1 inch. Then I connect these points in this way to create a bustier dart legs. Ladies and gentlemen, since we are drafting a bustier top, our dart intake method is different from the normal dart intake of 0.5 inches. That's why you see on one side I'm adding much, then on the other side I'm adding less. So it's not a normal way of inputting, and if you want to get a correct and a complete defined bustier dress, you have to increase the volume of the dart intake. So that's why we are going with these measurements as you see. So we continue. At this point you can connect them with a straight line, or you can connect them in a curvy way. As for me in this tutorial, I'm going to connect them slightly in a curvy way like this. After I come at the bust line at this point of the nipple to nipple point, I measure this distance to under bust, which is 3 inches. So I first pin my tape measure like this at this point. Then I pivot my 3 inches all round like this. Okay if you are enjoying this class, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to share and subscribe to this channel. And if you are a returning viewer, please thank you so much for supporting Top Stitch Tailoring Studio. Continue supporting, and the support that you give to me please gives me more energy and morale to create more videos for you, so that you can understand and learn. You know, it's better we share the knowledge, and yeah, that is it. Okay guys, I'm done with under bust circumference pivoting. Next step is to create the shoulder dart guideline. I come here at shoulder slope line. I divide this distance into 2 to get the midpoint. So I mark my midpoint here. Then I connect this midpoint to this nipple to nipple, or some call it apex to apex point at the bust line. Then now I come to this point. I mark outwards towards the center front 1 inch. Then this side I mark 1.25 inches. After I connect these points to the nipple point like so. Okay, next is to insert my round bust measurements. So I come to the chest line at this point. I measure inwards chest measurements plus 2 inch is allowance divided by 4. So for this tutorial, as I told you, my client's chest measurement is 35 inches. I add 2 inch is allowance. you need to add 2 inches is allowance for a tight fit, but if you want a loose fit you can add 4, 5 depending, but since this is the bustier, you just add 2 inches is allowance, giving me 37. I divide by 4, giving me 9.25 inches. So I mark my 9.25 inches here. Then I come at this point, I measure this distance to here, I divide by 2 to get the midpoint. So here is my midpoint. Next is to shift my chest line for the bustier. At this midpoint, I mark downwards 0.75 inches for the shift of my new chest bustier working line. Next is I come at this point of my bustier, I connect to the newly determined point like this. Also, I come at this point of the chest line, I mark downwards 1 inch for my sweetheart neckline style. Still, I connect it in a curvy way like this. So you need to connect it in a curvy way like this to bring that shape of the bust or the breast. Okay, now I have to recheck. Now I have to recheck on my chest measurements. I come here at this point, I measure chest measurements plus 2 inch is allowance, divide by 4, giving me the answer. So the 2 inches that I used here for that intake, I replace it to this side. So I mark here my replacement of 2 inches here plus 2 inch seam allowance. Also, I come here at the waistline, I insert my waist measurement, divide by 4. My client's waist measurement is 29 inches. I divide it by 4, giving me 7.25 inches. So here is my 7.25 inches. Then what I used here as that intake, which is 1.5 inches, I replace it back to this side. Then I mark my 1.5 inch replacement plus 2 inch seam allowance. Don't forget to add seam allowance, or you can add it after, but me, I always like adding seam allowance when working on my project. Then I connect these points to these points like this. So guys, we are almost getting done with our front bustier pattern. Next is to draft the back bustier pattern. I first square this distance, leaving space for my back zip allowance. Still, I trace out this line so that I input my back measurements. Now, I come at this point, I mark nipple to nipple measurements that we used in the front part, which was 4.2 inches. Here also I mark nipple to nipple of 4.25 inches here. Then I draw upwards a straight line, which is my back dirty line. Then I come at this point, I insert my dart intake of 1 inch. So on this side I mark 0.5 inches. Also this side I mark 0.5 inches. Then from this original chest line, I mark downwards 0.5 inches. So at this point, I create my dart legs like this. After, I now insert the chest measurements at the back. I come here, I measure inwards chest measurements plus 2 inch is allowance divided by 4. My client's chest measurement is 35 plus 2 giving me 37 divided by 4 giving me 9.25 inches. So I mark 9.25 inches here. Then at this waistline, I insert waist measurement divided by 4, which is 29 divided by 4 giving me 7.25 inches. Then the inches that I used here as dart intake, I replace them to this side. So I mark my replacement of 1 inch here. Then on both lines, I add seam allowance of 2 inches like this. Still, I come to this side, which is my center back line. I add zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. After, I connect these points together like this. So guys, our back part is as simple as that. Now, all our bustier drafts are ready. That is the back, and this one is the front part. I beg my pardon, don't forget this side of the front, you cut it on fabric while on fold. Don't make a mistake of cutting this side when it's not on fold. So you have to cut it while on fold. Now, the last thing is to trim and separate out our bustier panels in this way. Some guide for you. When trimming our bustier, you will only trim the red lines, the red marked lines like this. This is our front piece 1. Also, this is our front piece 2. Okay, now Madam Abigail, I hope you've seen and you've learned something. If there are some mistakes that you've been doing on your bustier drafting, please make adjustments. And if there is anything that I have left out, please feel free to contact me. Still, I'm always available. On my page, you can leave a comment in the comment section down below, or you can still reach me direct on a WhatsApp number that I always share with you. I share on the links below. So just go on my description box, you'll get my number there, and then see how we can communicate with each other. This one also is our back piece 1. Still, this one is also our back piece 2. Then at the back piece 1, here is our zip allowance. So guys, we are done with the drafting of our bustier top. As you can see, our 4 pieces, they are ready. Apply, use and innovate them. Come up with the outfit, show me, post. Apparently, I'm not near my workshop, so most of the things I just do the drafting. But one day, one time, I'll be going back to my workshop. I'll do the stitching so that you know how we do work. So all my subscribers and followers, thank you so much for showing love to me. Actually, you are the reason as to why I'm always happy. You make me happy and you always make my day. Thank you so much for supporting Top Stitch Tailoring Studio. Can't wait to see all of you celebrate with me when the channel hits 1 million subscribers. Yes, that's what I only want. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I sign out, go back to the kitchen to do the video. Actually, the next video is from Madam Caroline's request. Madam Caroline from Tanzania, you have requested a video, so it's my next project. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is what I had for you today. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, and thank you so much. So that's the end of our BUSTIER drafting tutorial. Wow, what is next is just to say God bless you all. See you in my next video. Bye bye. Shalom.